Hi, this is Talk K Dramas with Bruce and Dallas.
Hey.
Pachinko, episode 3.
Yes.
Ooh. Can I just take back everything I said in episode 1?
About what?
Everything.
What? What do you need to take back already?
Oh, I don't know. But I
You
bought
don't
the
want to
book.
watch this?
But I bought the book.
You don't want to watch it anymore?
No, I do. Not that.
Oh,
I thought it was
since you
gonna,
loved it.
I thought it was gonna be a love story and
It is.
kind of, yes.
It
But
will be.
anyways, I had the book.
But it's not Boys Over Flowers.
No, and it's just anyways, 500 pages, and I've this only read like this much, 100 pages or something. No, not even 100. And I think I've already covered the whole everything we've watched already. And there's interviews on YouTube with the author and the all the actors, well, the main actors, right? And so you can go on YouTube and watch the interviews.
Okay,
they're really good.
Put some links in there for our listeners.
Oh, sure, I will. And then I heard that Eamon Ho had to audition.
Did he?
This is the first time he's had to audition in like 10 years. I know. It was cool because because all the other stuff that he's done in those 10 years, he didn't have to audition. They're just like, yeah, we want you.
Yeah.
That's how good he is.
I know.
But he had to audition for this one. And even though his character is making me mad, he's so good at it. He's so good. He's so good at playing, not that he's playing a bad guy, but kind of creepy in a way, and we'll get into it, right?
Yeah,
we'll get into that. But I mean, he can play the good guy, the bad guy, and he's
the good bad guy.
You know what? I guess it just tells about his acting. He's just a good actor because he can do that. You like him no matter what.
Hey, this is my dude, and so yeah, and
that's why he's so popular.
Well, if he was everybody's dude, he wouldn't have had to audition for this part. I wonder about that. I would really like to see the video as to like the rationale. Like that. I mean, clearly, because to me, he's killing the role. Like he's absolutely just killing the role. But that the fact that they did not imagine a guy like him in it, that's the kind of talk that I love. Those little like details are going, when I imagined this role, I wasn't thinking of someone like Eamon Ho.
They didn't really talk about that, the directors. But listen, he is a Korean actor who's never been in an American made movie. So
what about Kingdom?
That's Korean.
It was Netflix.
That was Korean.
Oh, okay. I get it. Oh, okay.
These are American directors.
No, now I get it. And yes, and then I'm gonna get to that whole,
and it's
this is definitely American storyline.
Yeah, this is like mainstream American, show. So I'm sure they wanted to make sure that he was what they thought.
I guess they didn't know who Eamon Ho was.
They know who
he is. Can you imagine a universe that exists where they're like, yo, we're gonna make this.
No, I'm sure
we're gonna make this epic Korean drama thing, and we don't know who this dude is.
They know who he is. The directors are Korean, but this is
Korean American, I believe.
Yes. Yeah? Yes, for sure. So I get it. This is a big deal. They wanted, and not that they didn't think he could do it, but you really got to make sure when you're auditioning that you also have to make sure that you connect, that there's chemistry between you and
that is true. I'll tell you what,
she's so good too. Oh my gosh, the actress.
I left that one short on purpose.
Kim Min-ha. Oh, she's killing this role.
She's doing a great job, and I am actually surprised at the chemistry between the two of them, because on first glance I was like,
I know, for sure.
Like for real, like.
But now you see that she's smart, she's wise, and in the book that he liked that.
Yeah,
she wasn't just like the other girls, all the other girls. And so We talked about that too, that there was something about her that
Yeah.
caught his eye. And so, anyways, okay, before we go on, let's get your 3 sentences.
My 3 sentences. So Sunja gets pregnant and tells Hansu, but Hansu does not give the answer that we were all expecting. Sentence number 2, shoot, now I'm forgetting his name. It's Solomon. Solomon, right?
I
I
think
literally,
the grandson?
yeah, the grandson. Solomon takes his grandmother to the Korean woman's house and finally closes the deal. And sentence number 3, a sickly, mysterious stranger shows up to the boarding house and asks Sunja a very important question. Can she forget? Can she eventually move on from her first love?
Good. Oh my gosh, it's good. The book is good. The show is good. The book is definitely different.
Giving you a different feel.
The chronologically, the events are different.
Okay.
I mean, I told you just that little part of the book, I've already like caught up 60 pages to everything that we've seen already. And this is like a 500-page book.
Right.
And there should be a second series.
Oh man.
Yes, that's what in the interviews with the writer, the author, that there should be a second.
All right. Well,
series.
I hate that.
I know. Unless it's good. But look, it's a very big book. So there's a lot that's happening.
Okay.
And so remember, there's like 4 generations here. So there's lots to tell. This book is reminding me of The Good Earth. Because The Good Earth is a trilogy and it does span 3 generations.
Yeah.
So it's kind of reminding me. The first line of the book is history has failed us. I know the author.
That's deep. I like that.
The author says that that's her thesis statement because she feels like, regular ordinary people didn't get to tell their story. Some of them can't read, they can't write.
Okay.
So that's kind of why it reminds me of The Good Earth, because it starts off with a very poor farmer. So it's kind of reminding me, you might, if you haven't read it, by Pearl Buck. It's so good.
Oh, well,
Did you read it? You read The Good Earth? What?
Yes, love. I read The Good Earth.
When did you read it? In high school?
Yes, in high school.
That's amazing. I was just talking to my friend. We're talking about books because, she's a voracious reader, way more than I am. But I was like, I don't ever remember reading in high school. She's like, what? Like Shakespeare? I said, no.
I read Shakespeare Cliff Notes.
What English class were you taking? Or what English class was I taking? I never read. I don't remember any books in high school. I remember one time we went to go see The Scarlet Letter and you're like, didn't you read it in school? And I'm like, no. Wow. Like you made fun of me. Yeah. I remember feeling bad.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't read anything in high school.
Scarlet Letter, Dante's Inferno.
No. What English class was I taking?
It's okay, love. It's okay.
That's why.
It's okay. It's okay. But look at you now. Look.
I'm making up. Barely. Barely. Okay.
Just got accepted. I don't know if you know.
Stop.
No. What? Got accepted into the credential. What?
No. I don't want to give out all that stuff.
Oh.
I'm going back to school. I don't want to talk about it.
We mentioned it before.
I know you did. I'm going back to school. I don't want to talk about it because I feel old. I'm 50. I already made a mistake when I applied. I was accepted, but I applied to the wrong program. It's a sour topic for me.
For someone who didn't want to talk about it, you sure the heck is talking a lot about it right now. Dang. Okay,
I know, because now you already mentioned it.
Move on.
And I feel like I have to explain it now. I'm just feeling like until I'm in the seat in the classroom, I don't want something else to happen. And I'm going to feel like,
yeah. No,
it's rough going back to school. I haven't been in school in over 20 years.
Yep.
And so I'm having a hard time.
Okay. I'm sorry to make this harder for you. But hey,
It's okay. We got it out. I talked about it. I'll probably feel better, but I'm
okay,
having a little bit of issues
yeah, I feel you.
because
It's a big step.
I know, and already that big drama that happened, and I felt like, oh my gosh, of course, an old person would totally apply to the wrong program. What else am I gonna have to deal with?
I'm sure that there are some young people who apply to the wrong program also, and
I
you're going to get to meet
doubt
them
it. Doubt
in
it.
class. You're going to be.
I'll be
There's
like, oh,
very
you
little doubt in my
too?
mind.
No, I'm
We'll see.
things get harder as you get older.
We'll
I'm
see.
having a midlife crisis here, okay?
Oh, okay. No, I hear that. I hear you. I hear
Okay.
you.
Can we move on?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what I wanted to say is that no, the beginning of your book is absolutely stunning to me. Like when I was just like sitting
The beginning
there.
of my book, you started reading it?
No,
Oh,
just the one sentence you said,
oh,
the opening sentence of history has failed us
yeah.
is absolutely foundationally what ethnic studies is based on. The ethnic studies, which
Oh,
if you've heard other podcasts and stuff, you know that my first like my love is for ethnic studies, and there's a lot of talk, if you would, in the media and everything about critical race theory and
oh
all this stuff
gosh,
and everything,
yeah.
and there's a very real reason why critical race theory centering race, like putting making sure that marginalized voices and minoritized people have a voice in all these things in our history and everything. That is absolutely the move of what ethnic studies was doing
Mm,
on its inception. And so that sentence struck me, and then you explained it, and I'm like, yo, that's an ethnic studies statement. That's not, and whether this person views themselves as an ethnic studies person or not, I don't know. Whether you like that ethnic studies or not is irrelevant. I'm just saying, right, is that when you tell the story of everyone in a time period, you have a very different perspective of it
mm,
and a very different appreciation of it, right? And so when you talk about war and you talk about it not just from the conqueror's perspective, you talk about it from the people who were conquered perspective. Although your country may have won, if you talk about the people who were conquered and the hardships that they had to go through, then maybe you go, you know what? Maybe that war wasn't the best idea, right? And that to me is the foundational work of what ethnic studies, of telling the story of the oppressed, telling those
mm,
stories of what it's supposed to do, right? But that's why there's so much pushback here in the United States. It's like, well, what happens when you talk about the slave narratives? And versus how slavery built up our, helped build up our country. And yes, it was an injustice, but look at our great country right now,
mm,
versus talking about the trials and tribulations of the people who went through those spaces and whatnot. That to me is something to be focused on, to be centered even, because all of what we have in the United States came at great cost. And do we understand and appreciate that? And will we do it again? Those are the kind of things that, as we look at, like the war in Ukraine, and stuff like that, it's like, probably didn't have an ethnic studies class to be able to tell the story of people in those spaces. Not that ethnic studies is going to cure, world problems and wars and stuff like that, but at the same time, if you take what's happening now, because what I keep on, so the thing that I was reading, and I don't mean to go on, keep going on in this space, but it was just uh, something that just pulled my heart in, was that in the Ukraine, they're talking about how there's systematic rape happening in that
mm.
space. And I know that that's, a touchy subject for a lot of folks, but rape is part of war, right? And so therefore, if you talk about war from the perspective of women, you have to. And it's not just that women are raped, right? And yet at the same time, that is definitely one of the focal points of it, is systemized terror. And also the article that I was reading was talking about genocide, and I'm not necessarily going to go down that route, because it's kind of weird for me. But the idea of talking about, right, if you talked about war, but you focused the narrative on the experience of women through war, rape is going to have to come up. But how many times did we talk about rape during the Civil War, during the Revolutionary War, during all these wars and stuff like that that we talk about the Vietnam War? The Vietnam War, we started talking about it, and a lot of the movies and stuff started talking about it, and it freaked people out. And that was the reason why there was so much negative pushback on Vietnam veterans and stuff like that, because we started talking about it. The media was this bigger thing. And so it started reporting on things that people were in some way, shape, or form not ready to hear. And that this is what we do. Yes, this is what war is. And everything. So, and and flowers of war and things like that. And so anyway, all of that to say that first sentence is just dope to me because it speaks right to my heart of like, yo, history has failed us because it didn't tell very important people their story. It didn't tell their story. And now we have this warped sense of what progress looks like, what industrialization looks like, what capitalism looks like, because we didn't look at people who were oppressed in the system also. That's why like the book The Jungle by Upton Sinclair, it really gives you crazy. Now I'm going to tell you that's a very left communist, like way out there communist thing. If that bothers you, then don't read that, right? But it definitely gave a very different impression of capitalism and the Industrial Revolution, and what was going on, right? And it told that story, the story of, I believe it was like a Eastern European immigrant coming to the United States during the Industrial Revolution. And this is before child labor laws. This was before 40-hour work weeks. It was incredible. The book was incredible. It made me think about things that I had never thought about before when it came to capitalism and Industrial Revolution. And that's why it's so valuable. Whether you agree with the political slant of it, political space of it, to me is irrelevant. It's what was important was the thinking that I did in that space as a result of that. But anyway, I'm talking way too long about it. I'm sorry.
That was Ethnic Studies 101. Make sure to sign in.
I'm telling you, that's my intro class right there. Like that's gonna be like the beginning part of what I say in my ethnic studies classes.
That was good because that's exactly what the author was saying. I mean, I feel like that's what she was saying. Like, this is her thesis statement.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting, which is why I love these stories, which is why I loved The Good Earth, which is why I love this story, because you really get up close and personal to what was happening to these people,
right?
And which is
and another side of it,
yeah,
right? Another side, another angle.
And it's so interesting because I remember when Carter was in junior high, and we were giving him the option to study what he wanted to study, and he picked wars, but he wanted to study all the major wars, but he just didn't want to study the wars. He goes, I want to study the people and how they were affected. Which was so interesting that he said that, because he has a mind like yours, like, and me too. I didn't never verbalized it, but that's why I love these type of historical dramas. And he ended up reading The Hotel on the Corner of Bitter and Sweet, Hotel Corner of Bitter and Sweet, which is about a young Chinese, during the bombing of Pearl Harbor in World War II, and it was 1942, and it was about a young Chinese boy and a Japanese girl who they kind of liked each other, and then she was taken to an internment camp.
Wow. Yeah.
But all those type of stories, that's what this book is, I think, to tell a story of what was happening. Anyways, we went off a little bit, but that's
why you would all of what we had just talked about is why you would love Pachinko. If you're watching it, then you're loving it, and you're probably saying a lot of the same things in your head, maybe not consciously, but you're connecting to, like, yo, this is a part of history that I didn't read about. Right.
We may get to it or not, but there is a part when Lee Min-ho talks to Sunja, and he's like, what are you going to do? There's women out there that are, selling themselves, all that. Anyways, I just forgot why I was telling you that. but it talks about what was happening during the time. And because, you
Yes.
know, I told you I was kind of like I was a little bit upset with his character and the way it's going, but this is a different time. I don't know if that doesn't give it an excuse or anything, but we got to remember the time and what was happening here,
Yeah.
and the mentality of the people and the culture.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, let's talk about in the beginning, the beginning of this episode 3.
Mm-hmm.
It's really cool because they show Sunja as a young girl and then as an old woman making food,
Yeah.
right? Just
Yeah.
the right in the beginning intro. That was a really, the scenes here are just phenomenal, aren't they?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Just great.
Like I said, you could tell that they put a lot of money into these things, like the Netflix ones and the like the cinematography, the little shots that they take, right? It's like that's the, in constructing films and stuff like that. It's like it's not a sitcom where there's like just like two set props or like two sets or whatever. It's like it's moving all through these spaces and they're taking the time to do very small shots. That's when
I
they got a
think
big budget.
I think that the directors are just good. They have a good
That too.
eye,
That
you
too.
know, both of them. There's two different directors. And
Mm,
so when I was watching in the interview, they were asking one of the directors, were you there during the scene? And he goes, no, I think I was filming a different scene. So it's so interesting how you can have different directors filming different scenes, but yet, when they put them together,
mm-hmm.
there's there's a consistency. I would think sometimes like that would be lost,
Yeah.
but if they're good and editing is good, because
And they're working as a team.
it's, I have no idea how they do that. So the next scene, Sunja is not, she's not feeling so well, and I knew right away.
It took me a
I
while. It
I
really
know,
did.
because you were
It's
like, huh? And I said, oh, I think I said something like that, and you're like,
yeah.
what? And I'm like, oh, I just knew. I was like, I have 4 kids, you know.
You
I
saw the signs real quick. I didn't see. I just thought she was just
She ate
cooking.
some bad shrimp crabs or something.
I
Fish.
didn't. I didn't honestly. I didn't even think anything of it until you took that.
And then the
It's like,
sister says, you didn't have your period last month.
well, then that's when I figured it out.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a few scenes in the beginning when they're showing her and she's not feeling so well. And there's a couple scenes where, oh my gosh, I just love the scenes. When she was like, there was one scene she was trying to tell her mom, and she's like, Mom. Like I felt it. I felt how hard that was.
Yeah.
I love that they put that tiny little scene in there.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And she didn't get to tell her anything because they got distracted.
Yeah. I
But
think
all
that's when
she,
the sick stranger came
yeah,
in. Yeah.
but all she was just like, Mom. And I was like, my stomach twisted. I mean, I have a 12-year-old daughter. We have a 12-year-old daughter.
Mm.
And I'm telling you, I can just relate. That whole time my stomach was twisting, and I thought that could happen to me.
Mm.
That could really happen,
Yeah.
where our daughter comes to us, and young. I think she's 15, 16 at this age.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not very old.
And oh, okay. So let me just move on. The sister-in-law dies.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so this is the sister-in-law. And then in the so we go back, we're going back and forth, obviously. In the market, Sunja hears Hansu may not come back because he's been gone for a while.
Mm-hmm.
He's a fish broker, and so
Right.
he has business in Japan, and he goes back and forth. And again, she's not feeling well.
Yeah.
And then we go back and they're to 1989, and then the funeral, and with the
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
sister-in-law. And there's a big scene here with the priest, and they're praying, and
Mm.
Sunja's very welcoming to him. But Solomon, you can tell he's not comfortable.
Yeah. He looks at him with suspicion, to say the
Yeah.
least. Yeah.
And there's a scene in here where Sunja, the older Sunja, the grandmother, tells Solomon something like, he reminds me of somebody.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's
Yeah.
just move on,
Yeah.
because it's all coming together,
Mhm.
right? I have to be careful I don't because there's the book part. The book's different.
Oh, okay.
So I
Okay.
want to make sure that I don't give up anything. All I have to say though, I am so glad I didn't read the book before. And I'm so glad I didn't even read the back of the book. The back of the book tells you the whole freaking story, or the story as we know it
Yeah, okay.
from the show, right? Okay, so we'll get to that. Um, and at the market, back at the market, Hansu's back.
Hmm.
And Soon just looks at him. And there was a part of me when he looked up at her that I was like, oh, don't ignore her.
Oh.
Like I was afraid that he was just gonna like turn away, like he didn't
Hmm.
know her. But then she kind of smiles. And I don't know, does he nod his head? But he does acknowledge her.
He does acknowledge
And I
her.
was like, oh, okay.
They lock eyes.
Yeah. And so
Very powerful
that
romantic
scene
moment.
scared me.
Hmm.
There was a fear in me that he was going to ignore her and break her heart.
Hmm.
And so they meet down by the, seashore, whatever, where they
Hmm.
meet, where she does her laundry. And she tells them she's with child
Yep.
after they had their little rendezvous. I was like, girl, why didn't you tell him before?
Because
She,
she wanted to be with
yeah,
him.
I,
How
I,
about that?
I loved it. I loved how she ran to him.
Hmm.
Oh, I love that scene. And in the book, at that scene, it was they made note of that. Like she didn't show all of that emotion
Hmm.
normally,
Okay.
but because he was gone for so long, she was so happy to see him. And then, knowing she was pregnant, that she ran to him.
Yeah.
And in the movie, when we're watching it, I thought it was cute,
Yeah.
you know.
It's cool. Okay. There we go.
And this scene right here is why I'm so glad I didn't read the book or even read the back of the book,
Hmm.
because you and I think both were shocked when he said, I'm married, I have 2 kids, I can't marry you.
I was not. I knew he
Oh,
wasn't going to be the. I knew this wasn't Boys Over Flowers.
yeah,
I
yeah.
knew this wasn't going to be this
But I wouldn't
continual love
expect that
thing.
at
But yeah,
all.
I was.
That was
I
like
was just wondering how it was going to happen,
yeah,
and that was good.
it
That was
was an
good for me.
arrow through my heart. I heard you. Quit trying to act all cool. I heard you. I heard you go, don't try to act like you knew what was happening. You
I
were
didn't know.
shocked.
I did. I told you I didn't
I
know what was
know, but
happening.
you
I
were as
just
shocked as I
knew
was.
that it's like I was just like, oh snap! Like,
And no, Bruce was like, he's trying to act like he was all cool.
I wasn't trying anyway.
You
I
were
was saying
shocked.
I was wondering how it was going to happen, and I'm like, oh, yes,
See, you were
yes,
shocked.
yeah. And so,
Oh,
but yeah, yeah. Go
that
ahead, keep going.
that broke my heart. That changed everything. I was like, oh my God. And he's like, I'll buy you a house. I'm gonna take care of you. You're
Our
gonna bring me
child will
my
want for nothing.
yeah. And so
We'll
there
have more
was,
children.
yeah, yeah. And in the book, the same thing. She's like, when are you gonna go meet my mom, and talk about marriage and all that? So there was a part of me, I was looking at it at both sides, right? And I was getting it, like, she was brought up very well and respectful, and they
Hmm.
have pride, they have a business. This is a big deal.
Yeah.
Like I had to sit and think about this for a while, like what this means.
Hmm.
If she can't live there with her mom and be a single parent,
Correct.
like
They
the
made that very clear
she
that this
can't,
was, yeah,
you
this
can't
was
do that. The neighbors,
very shameful.
yes, and even in the book, they're like, their neighbors wouldn't allow it. Like it would
Mm,
bring shame to probably the whole community. And then they could lose their boarding, the people that go to live there,
right.
because then they might be like, what, is she sleeping with one of the guys? Or it would be so ugly.
Right.
She would have to leave.
Hmm.
And then so I was thinking about all of that. And then when he was offering to take care of her and all of that, I was like, well, you could go to another town and live there and just say your husband died and you'll be taken care of. Because I have a feeling this is not where that's going, that she's going to struggle, right? There's many
I'm
comments he's made
sure.
as
Yeah. Yeah.
the older, that how much she's struggled. And I was like, why don't you just take what he's offering? Because you don't want to suffer,
Right.
but
Yeah.
but that's not, I thought about that. I mean, that's child support, right? I mean, who would not take child support? But on the other hand, it's everything else that comes with being a mistress. She's
Hmm.
not the wife. He
Yeah.
has a wife, and you know, she thought that she was going to have parents like her mom and dad,
Right.
and live that type of life in love.
Hmm.
And so to hear that he has a wife and in the book, three daughters,
Hmm.
like I can see how that's, she's ashamed,
Right.
and why she doesn't want to um accept his offer.
Right.
And so,
What I like to say right now is that monogamy is a social construction. And I'm having a hard time believing that what's time frame are we in, 1930
yeah, private
ish.
19, yeah.
I'm having a hard time believing that a woman in that era is not going to just take that deal. And y'all could be as mad as you
I
want
thought
to
about
be
that
about
too.
to
Yeah.
me. You
Yeah.
could be as mad as you want, but remember. So this is where I was like, I expressed a little bit of, it's not disappointment. That's not the word. This is definitely an American film. That's what I'm saying, right? And there's moments in here that you want to amplify, right? Because you see Solomon struggling to be quote American, right? In the context of all the stuff that's going on, and struggling with his American, Korean, Japanese identities, right? All of them warring all at the same time, or living all in the same time with him in him. And so it's like, to me, it's like you feel like I feel like they had to like make it seem like the mom or Sunja was quote an American type of girl, and that this was the way to kind of do it, right? Because like I said, if you just accept the deal, then that's very not American. That's very not American. I'm not saying that there's not a lot of Americans that would do that, but in our cinema, our media, all that stuff, that's not the deal that you take. That's not what shows that you are an American type of girl, right? But like I said, monogamy is a social construction, meaning that we have created this world now to where we're saying monogamy, 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 while back then it was way clearer that these lines are blurred. And then also when you look at like France, I think it was like one of the prime ministers, he passed away, and his wife and his mistress were walking side by side when you like in his funeral procession, right?
What year is this?
It was just a few years ago. It was literally just a few years ago. And so I'm saying, right? And then you have all kinds of stories in older stories and whatever about other people, or just mistresses and all of this stuff. And so I hear you, I understand. I'm having a hard time accepting that someone is going to go through a life of struggle versus pushing the easy button on this, like for real. But there's a place where I want to connect. I want to connect the two, and so I'll wait for it from there. But yeah, it's a really hard sell to me right now that this young woman
during this time, 1920s,
is not going to hit the easy, like not going to hit the easy button. That's a hard sell to me. That's a hard sell. He's even saying like people are starving out there.
Yeah,
and you will want for nothing.
And then he even throws the fact in, like, who's going to want you? Because your father, in the book, he's like, he knew it was wrong to say that. He felt bad.
Yeah.
That he threw that in, like, our child could have a deformity.
Yeah.
Like, you have it good right now. Take what I'm offering. This is not bad. And he does have feelings for her. And again, during this, this is the turn of the 19th century, 20th century. 20th century things, this isn't like the 1600s or some 1500s or something.
Yeah.
Times were changing a little bit, okay. I'm guessing where having a mistress,
this is a very love oriented type of film, and from my understanding through my readings and all of the stuff, not going to say that I necessarily have researched it, but it's just my readings and understandings of society, of different cultures, different spaces. They're not as much into the love thing as we are in the United States and quote the Western European world and stuff like that. They're not as much into this love thing as we are. So to
Which
base this on
is,
love, I'm like that, like all in. Like if I don't get love
then I'm
from
out.
this dude, then I'm out. Like,
Well, I believe,
I'm
I
having a hard time with that one.
I believe the author may be like a Korean American.
Yeah. No, and
So she,
I get where the struggles are going to happen. There's
and
some, yeah.
also this is probably why it works so well here in America, this story, this book, A New York
Oh
Times,
yeah, of course,
because,
because it taps into our Americanness.
and also what we were, our last episode, girl power, and what were you calling it?
Yeah,
To say, no, if I can't have, and then, he didn't tell her, he wasn't upfront. But you're right. So that's all of that too, is what I was struggling with. I'm like, in those times, but see, she's the mistress. And I just feel like she was raised differently. She was
mhm.
raised,
I
very loving
guarantee you,
parents.
if she tells her mother the deal,
Her mom would
her
say,
mom will say, "Take it."
yeah. And she can move, but I was thinking she can move to another place where they don't know,
That's true.
or say that her
There's
husband,
all kinds of ways that you can.
yeah, nobody needed to know that he has a family somewhere else. Like that was normal.
Yeah,
That might have been a norm. I don't know how, the time, this time, but in some cultures, they have mistresses all the time. But she
absolutely,
didn't want to be the mistress. She wanted to be the main wife,
clearly, yes.
you know? And so that was heartbreaking. And maybe because she's young. I don't know. You know what? This is the love story part that I love. She,
All that romance. Yeah, I
yeah,
get
she
it.
was in love with him. She
I
thought,
I completely understand all these
so
things.
anyways, that's all good stuff to talk about and think about. Would that really have happened?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'll tie it in right now. And the other thing is that her character development, Sunja's character development, is that she's clearly not into stuff. She's not into stuff.
Yeah.
The
And she's a hard worker.
and the reason why is because the reason why I'm making that connection is because they made it a point to make that to make that a point about her, because after her sister-in-law died, she was just like, it's just stuff, get rid of it, it's just stuff,
They're just
right?
walls.
It's just walls and all of this stuff. So right, it's like, and so I'm waiting to see what happened in her life in order to really get down into that moment and
Yeah,
to
that
those
was good.
feelings about this is just stuff.
When she was, that's when she was
But I know
talking to
we have the
Solomon.
beginning of it already. It's like she chose to have a hard life to have a hard life versus stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's something
It was more to
we're
her.
yeah, it was more to her to be
I
loved.
always tie it back to her father because he was so loving with her.
Mm,
That relationship there. She knows that.
yeah. Okay.
All right. And she's like, I'm not taking anything less.
Interesting. That's an interesting connection.
At least that's how I felt when, watching that she had this loving relationship with her father.
Yeah.
And to take anything less than what her father gave her,
Mm-hmm.
it's not her.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll take
so
that.
we talked about him already, the young man that arrived sick.
Yes.
And Sunja's mother vowed to take care of him. And probably because she feels her husband looks like he has tuberculosis. What is it?
It was tuberculosis.
Tuberculosis
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So he makes his way to the boarding house.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. That's good. To me, it was like it explained something like I don't. And you know what? No, I mean, it's
Well,
not like they would know about communal diseases or anything. But
they
she
did.
already
In the book, they talked about it
oh,
a little bit. That's
she
why.
had immunity.
Oh,
Her
maybe because he kept saying, I in the book, like, I know I could have got you guys sick. I'm glad nobody's sick. But you're right. They could have.
yeah, I don't know. They thought about it like I have immunity, but
Okay, so he arrives and he
yes.
stays there, and the mother is helping him.
Mm-hmm. Nurses him back to health.
Yes, and then we go back. We talked already a little bit about that, about Sunja as back in 1989. Her and Solomon are cleaning out the aunt's room because she passes, and that's where she talks about this is just stuff.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, and we've seen it since the first episode, on television.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Yeah, there's a
came,
whole different story happening on TV.
there's, yes, isn't that funny? So there's, and she watches it just for a minute. You can tell that she's took notice. So they said there's a notorious figure with ties to organized crime. So I guess he
Mhm.
just died, and he left his grandson a fortune.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
they're thinking that the grandson may also have some ties
yeah,
to that. So we can kind of guess maybe what's happening here, but I kind of just want to wait and see
yeah. I
what
don't.
happens.
I really want to let it unfold.
Yeah.
Because yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of possibilities happening here.
Yeah, but there's something. I'm wondering who that grandfather is.
Well, it's like to me. Well, there's some connections to be made. Is that now?
I was saying we weren't going to talk about it.
Okay.
We just want to wait and see who it might be. We can kind of guess who it is, but
Okay.
but you know what she also said too, during this scene, there was a lot that she was saying. She was saying, um, talking about the aunt, that back, that she couldn't have done it. She couldn't
Without,
have
yeah,
survived without the
yeah,
aunt. She was like 14 hours of work. I
a
couldn't have done
day,
it.
7 days a week.
I
Yeah.
couldn't have done it without her. And
Hmm.
then her and so they're kind of leading us to what her life
Oh yeah.
is going to be now. And she also said the grandson is like, this is your time to take care of yourself. And she says, you act like this kind of life is not easy, or is what did she say? You act like this kind of life is easy or not easy. So basically
Yeah,
she
so
was
like
saying
not
like,
easy. It was
this is
definitely a
nothing.
not easy. Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
this is life.
this
Yeah,
is, I know what hard work is and
right.
hard life is.
Hmm.
And so that's what happens. That little scene I think was important. There was a lot
Hmm.
of stuff in there.
Yeah.
So Solomon can't make the deal. He
Hmm.
can't get this woman to sell her property,
Right.
which is why he's over
The sole reason why
in
he's over
Japan.
there is to make that deal happen.
Yes. And then let's see. So what happens is he well, right before that, Sunja, back in, when she's young, they find out who the priest is. They read postcards because they don't know who this is.
Hmm.
So they find out who he is. He's a priest. And then back in 1989, grandma goes to Tokyo. Grandma Sunja goes to Tokyo with the grandson because he's thinking he can get her, the grandmother, to help close the deal because
Yeah.
the women are the same age and they
Hmm.
can relate.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, because of what she said, like, this is just falls,
Right.
So he's like, that's where he gets the idea, like, maybe you
Hmm.
can let her know that. Like the money stuff, she's gonna need a ton of money that she can help the kids, the
Right.
grandkids, and
For sure. Yeah. No, did she? I mean, with a 1 billion yen, I'm assuming that. Well, it's definitely not the same thing as saying $1 billion, but during that time, I'm pretty sure that the yen was less than $1, but it's a significant amount. I mean,
yeah,
we're talking millions and millions of dollars there.
yeah. So young Sunja
Mm,
finally tells her mother.
yes.
Oh my God, that was heart wrenching for me.
Oh yeah.
Well, because of Alana.
Oh, oh yeah.
I
You're
was
kind of
just,
living this. Okay.
I would,
Okay.
even right now, like I'm getting a little, my stomach's turning.
Mm,
It was, oh my God. And then she's just, oh, both of them played it so well. You felt it.
hmm.
You felt it.
No, I did. That was good.
And her mom was like, how could you be so stupid? Oh, oh my God. And it's so sad because, Sunja really thought and I don't want to say that he doesn't love her, but she thought that she was the only one.
Yeah.
And so I can't even, not only is she pregnant, but then has to deal with the heartbreak
Yeah.
that she's not the only one.
That is true.
So while all of this is happening, the priest in the other room, the walls are literally paper thin,
Yeah.
overhears it. He
Yeah. Or the
overhears.
strange. Yeah, we find out that the stranger is a priest.
Yeah. So he overhears it. And so then what happens next, back in is it Osaka or Tokyo, where the property is.
I think it's in Tokyo.
Tokyo. Well, the Solomon and the grandma are there, and the grandmother and the woman, the property owner, they reminisce.
Yes.
And even the rice scene.
The rice scene was incredible.
So
that part
good.
was just so deep. Oh man, I was just like, let's go. Let's
I
go. Let's do this
know. And
work.
you know what I love too? When the grandmother is thinking back, and I don't know, remember if she's crying. I'm guessing she's crying, but she's feeling terrible. Her memories of thinking back. And then Solomon, like, he wants to come in like, it's okay, or save her.
Yeah.
And the lady's like, what do she deserves it. She deserves
she deserves those tears.
tear. Yeah. And I just went, some, because it is sometimes when somebody is mourning, or they're sad, or they had a loss, you want to say something.
Yeah.
And I felt like at that moment, like, do I say something? That exact feeling.
Mhm.
What do I say? And it's like, you don't have to say anything. The
Yeah.
grandma's like, let her have this moment. She deserves it. Like,
Right.
and I was like, that is so true. You don't say anything.
Yeah, you don't have to. Just be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the whole scene with them, and they go back and forth. And I think that's when Soon, just talking to the lady, makes her think about going back. That's when she starts to realize she wants to go back, because I think she started talking about the aunt, and the aunt always wanted to go back, and she didn't. And I think the lady, the owner, even tells her, why don't you go back?
Right.
It's
It's not like you can't afford it. That's for sure.
Yeah. So when they leave, it doesn't look like
it doesn't look like they're going to close the deal
again.
Yeah.
And I think grandmother tells Solomon, like at the airport, like, don't, he's like, don't make her sell, like, this is all she has. I don't know what the scene was, but I remember something like that. Do you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the part that I wanted to talk about is like, I'm lost on the details of the space. I just know this detail. And this is something that I was kind of waiting for. And so maybe you didn't catch it or whatever, but with Solomon, it was a very interesting thing. And maybe you'll get to this in the book. When he goes into he uses his Japanese voice. Like, there's a Japanese voice he has, meaning very specifically, it's an imperial authoritarian voice that he has. So when he's talking to the Korean woman, right, with his grandmother there, and he was like, it's time for them to pay us back or something like that. And she was like, do you really believe that? And he's like, hi, right? It's like, and it was really interesting there. But then he does it again with his grandmother at the airport, and switches to Japanese in a very, like I said, a very authoritarian imperialist type of way. And I was like, this is an interesting thing for him to, because he's, it's like, it's interesting to me because he's not struggling with just two cultures. Like the way that we would do this in the United States, it would just be a two culture thing. He's struggling with three, right? It's like he has Korean, Japanese, and he has this United States thing that he has to deal with. And so it is making it to where this is becoming very fascinating to me on a cultural, cultural analysis level and stuff like that.
And I think this is exactly what the producers and maybe even the author wanted, which is why they kept the original languages.
Yeah. Oh, you have to. You have just for that moment. You have to.
Yeah, and then you picked it up. You picked up on that.
That's why I get paid the big bucks.
Yeah. Don't ever forget that. So Solomon, he's back at the office, and they close the deal. He finds out that
yes.
What do you think it was?
Oh, it was definitely just the reconnection with the grandmother and all that. And they just was like, you know what? I am holding on.
She needed sometimes you need closure. And there was no closure there for her.
Right. And just appreciation and connection. And
somebody
then, you
to
know
say,
what?
I know what you've gone through. I know what this means to you. You are right. No one ever said that to her. Nobody connected with her on that when they were trying to sell the property.
Yeah, all it was just the Japanese folks trying, that investment company, which Japanese, just trying to take away from Koreans again. That's the way it was framed before. But Solomon, I don't want to say that Solomon did anything convincing. I don't
No, he
know.
didn't.
I really don't think. I think it was
He
just
didn't
the
do
connection
anything but
between the
sit there.
grandmother
Yeah.
and that woman. And now this woman has enough money to go. I think we're going to see a little bit more of her.
Maybe she'll go back
Yeah,
home
maybe she'll
together.
be able to go back home and spend some time home. And
Okay, so Hannah is bothering me. She's like some loose end to somewhere. I don't know where to tuck it in, that loose string here.
yeah,
But she calls Solomon at work again and she's
while they're
coughing.
about to go celebrating. Oh yeah, she's coughing.
So I mean, I think I check out when she calls because I'm like, don't give me that look. I'm expecting you to carry this scene for me.
There's nothing to carry.
Okay, so I'm okay then. I can't connect the dots. I can't connect the dots with her.
And that requires patience.
Yeah. So
storytelling patience, and that's what we need right now.
Too much
We
brain
need
power for me because I have to remember her.
to me it's just I get it, like the setup, and I'm just waiting for them to reveal what happened in the storyline, because they're clearly going to do that. Now she's coughing. Now it makes a little bit more sense as to why she's coming back, if you would, making these phone calls and stuff like that. She's probably sick. She's probably dying. She's probably letting herself die. And unlike the sister-in-law, right? It's like there's all these juxtapositions, right? And so the sister-in-law living, and then this, the young Hannah being in the space, that I really think that they're going to do something here with us, but we have to wait for it.
So what's happening here with the priest back is that's
a good looking dude, by the way.
He is.
He's good looking.
And he goes to the market with Sunja because he needs to get out and walk. He's getting better.
Yeah.
Right?
Fresh air.
Yes. So they walk to the market, and on the docks, Sunja sees Hansu and she sees him, and she just walks.
I mean, they make eye contact and everything,
and so
she rolls.
Yes. And she's eating lunch with him. And it probably the first time that she said that. She said
that in the scene. She was like, this is the first time I've ever been in a restaurant.
Yeah. And they're eating noodles together. And this is where he has the conversation that he knows that she's pregnant, and he asked her, could you care for another person?
Yeah, over time.
And I'm like, get to it. Can you say what you mean? And you know what though, what was so, because I guess he did even say, you can give your child up for adoption and stuff. But I like what she said. She said, my child is here, even though he shouldn't be. He will be loved. And she also related that to her.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look, I shouldn't have been here, but I am.
Yeah. I mean, remember, it's like when our opening scene was that the mother had, I think, a
lot of miscarriages.
It's either miscarriages or early deaths, right? It was not, she said like they haven't made it past the first year. And so it's not necessarily miscarriages.
You're right.
And so she was number 4. Right. And so she was number 4 coming through. And so, I feel that. So that part to me, I was like, okay.
And in the book,
I can hold on to that moving forward. I still don't buy that, I'm still having a hard time with not accepting the deal, if you would. But the fact that she's willing to go through all of this, all the heartache and pain and everything, it makes sense. That part makes sense to me.
That's true too, because in the book, the mother talks about that she has like 4 graves, something like that she has graves of her children. And some of them even had the disability of the father. So, and so also to say that, her child could have the disability too, because Kansu had mentioned that. Did mention that. And
I don't know, I think the word is deformity.
There you go. But also his foot was deformed in the book. He had a deformed foot as well. And but what was nice is that what was also cool was that she said, my father made the same promise to me
Yeah.
Remember in the beginning when he had promised her that he would, watch over her and keep harm
Right.
from
Yeah.
her.
That was good stuff.
What I wanted to say, we did touch on it, but the grandma decides she wants to go back home because she wants to spread the aunt's ashes.
Yes.
She goes and tells her son,
That's what we did with my mom.
Pachinko.
What my
Oh, I
sister did with
forgot
my
about
mom.
that. She went back to Japan.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you made it happen.
That is awesome.
I did want
Anything
to
else?
say one thing. It's like, I think in the United States, I think we have a little bit more of a challenge. I think we all understand the deformity thing, right? Like just on the surface level, it's like, look, this is a thing. You don't want to necessarily pass that down to the gene pool. To make clear, there's moments, right? I have my moments when I know something culturally, is that it's a huge deal. It's a huge deal for you to be deformed in Asian cultures, especially ones that practice like Buddhism, stuff like that, or have the belief of reincarnation. This is the important part, is that because, right, if you believe in reincarnation, then the idea of deformity, right? The idea of deformity is that you did something really bad in your past life in order for you to be deformed, come back and be deformed now. So it was a huge social thing. It's not some small thing, right? It's not the goodness of Sunja's mother's heart or whatever. It's like, this is a huge, colossal thing to go like, okay, I'm going to be his wife. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to have children with this person, and everything. It is a huge, colossal deal. It is not some small little thing, right? And so, but that's the tie-in I wanted to make sure, just like I said, it's just one of those things where it's like, it makes sense on its surface, but if you don't understand a huge social deal, I don't want to make it necessarily the equivalent, but that would be as taboo as marrying someone of a different race in the United States during the 1870s or something like that, during slavery times.
Interesting, because in the book too, Sunja's father, they made a point to say that he didn't follow any religion, Buddha, anything.
Yeah.
Because when the mother was talking to the priest, and he's like, he had said, "Do you believe in God?" And she's like, "Well, my husband, I believe you're good people. We always thought the Christians were good people, but we never followed anything." And I wonder if that had anything to do.
In Christianity, there's no tie-in. All deformities and everything that just falls into, that's just because the world is a fallen, and so there's no tie-in with that. There's no repercussions for that. It's just the world that we live in. But like I said, in any religion that has reincarnation, being deformed is a huge
and the other
deal.
thing, there were peasants, so you had to work hard.
That too.
And it was hard for him to work. Well, they didn't show it. I don't think they showed it.
They didn't emphasize it, but they just definitely showed him moving slow.
Okay, because he had a foot deformity. So yeah, because they had talked about, they didn't get to do like walk by the ocean or the sea or anything, because he had to save all his energy for work, what had to be done.
Okay.
So that's another difficult thing too. If you have children to help you on the farm or in your out in the fields and stuff, that
is true.
Something. Okay, that was episode 3.
Indeed.
Thanks for listening. This is Talk K-Dramas with Bruce and Dallas. Please subscribe and give us 5 stars wherever you're listening. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.